Well, we're here at World Team Camp getting ready for the Pan American Games, and we are doing our leadership show here. Welcome, Rick. We got John Stefanovic, and we got Daniel Miller here. And we're just going to talk about Rick presented yesterday for us. Really great lessons he learned from his missions on NASA to just leadership and mostly teamwork yesterday. So the guys were very impressed with the talk he gave and very valuable stuff. But one of the biggest things that a lot of our military guys, that 60% of our team is military, they get a lot of great leadership training. So we've got the dynamics of this team has changed dramatically just because 60% of our guys are trained leaders. But you talked with us yesterday about teamwork and how those leaders got to work together and stuff. So we just want to get some feedback from some of the athletes that sat through it. What do you guys think?
I mean, we love that. I think we benefit greatly from the teamwork aspect. I believe that a lot of times the teamwork part is overlooked because of the sport in which we're in. How a lot of people will say it's an individual sport because we are the only ones on the mat and everything else. But what we don't realize is, just like we talked about, yesterday in Rick's class and everything, was the whole team that was there. There's only 4 guys that are actually conducting this and getting the TV time and getting everything else. But what they didn't see was the 40 people in the background that work there every single day, nonstop, and that's just the same thing that comes in to the part of our sport in wrestling. Is I can't become the greatest in the world without the best training partners there who dedicate and devote themselves every day to anything and everything that I need, or Dan needs, or Pat needs, or Paul needs, or Trace needs, or anybody else on any USA team. And that's so often overlooked because we look at leadership, or we look at how to become the best at this or the best at that, but we don't look to take a step back and see, how are we going to work together to get to that great moment of achieving our goals. I think that's the best part.
I mean, you were trained in the Navy, Naval Academy. I mean, you're a trained leader. So.
Yeah, I think one of the best things, a little bit less conventional way of thinking about it that you kind of brought to the table yesterday is that a lot of times when people do training for teamwork and such, you do things like team building exercises or how do we work well together. And you talked about how you guys did those as part of the program, but what you also talked about is how much more important it is to reflect upon how you're performing as an individual and how you are acting as a teammate and how you're doing your part as a member of that team. And it goes back to that personal development can actually help you be a better teammate. And if everyone does that on an individual basis, that's how we build a solid team. And so sometimes when we look at it, from like that team building exercise thing, it's easy to point fingers and externalize and say, you failed this mission, or you messed this up, and that's why we ended up failing, or you didn't get enough sleep, and that's why we're in this position. But at the end of the day, if you sit there and everyone does the same thing, if everyone can reflect on what they're responsible for and they can take ownership for that, that is going to end up leading to a more effective team because you're taking responsibility for your own actions, and then you can all press forward with the right mindset. So I thought that to me is what stood out the most as far as like teamwork aspect is you talked about how you do so many surveys and all these tests and everything that NASA's doing, and at the end of the day, what the conclusion that it led you to is I need to do a whole lot of self-reflection if I want to make this team work.
Yeah, it was really good. I think what you guys were talking about earlier said like in the military, you guys get a lot of teamwork, but it's like implicitly embedded in the culture, the expectations, and I think we get that sort of to a lesser degree embedded normatively in wrestling. But like a lot of what we talk about on the show, this is about trying to address kids or younger men who are coming up through wrestling who might be getting some flavors of that, but maybe not having that recognition dialed in. That because when you're younger, you feel like you're the you're the only one with your hand raised on the mat or with the black eye when you're done. And I think it takes a little growing up for people sort of, as the kids become college or national team members, or realize that there's more than just me out there on the mat. And you realize, oh wow, parents really helped drive me to all these tournaments, and the coaches helped staying after practice. And I thought it was really interesting that you guys have come from a culture where those values are so embedded, where it's almost second nature to think about that. And maybe the civilian side of the kids don't always have that recognition as just normally developing.
John and I were talking over breakfast, just about the recruiting of the right athletes. And yeah, I honestly believe we got to get our athletes in the program younger, earlier, and then you're dealing with a younger and less mature man. You're dealing with a child, a kid. We use those languages. And what John was saying, if this guy's, and Dan even, if this guy's doing a great job, why is the Marine Corps going to let him leave his job? He's great. We don't want to lose him either. He's also could be great at this one. So yeah, you want to share about what we were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it truly is. It's a challenge that not we face, but I think a lot of people will face that. And coming with that, and kind of spinning off of that, what you talked about yesterday is like with the whole ego thing, and it's all second nature to these guys that if I'm doing great or if I'm going to do great, whether it's the Marine Corps or whether it's wrestling, and they keep that going, and they want to go down this path, but they're always going to have somebody, whether it's the national team, the head coach of the national team, or if it's a college, or if it's a job, or the Marine Corps, the service, or anything else, and they're all going to not want to let them go. And I think that's definitely a thing that we face as a challenge, is making sure that he lands or she lands or whoever it is, that they land in the right spot to succeed. And as leaders of the sport now, it's kind of our job to be a cornerstone and set forth where these guys need to go and what they need to do to get there.
And then you talked about setting the example, and it's obvious in our program, in our room. The Marines are the first guys in the room. The Marines are the last guys to leave for practice every day. Why is that important for you? Why is that? It's obviously it's not something that happens by accident, but it also is just because that's the kind of individual you are. You're going to be the first guy there, and you're going to be the last guy there. But why is that? Share with us why that's important.
I think one of the things is, I know that it's all about teamwork, but it goes back to the individual basis. And so, for me at least, as a Marine, there's a certain amount of pride that comes along with that. One of the things we do in the Marine Corps is we do the most with the least. That's one of our sayings as far as in the Department of Defense. We have the least amount of resources, and we do the most with them. And so we sort of take the same mentality and we transfer that across all facets of life. And so whether it's I'm going to do the most amount of work in the wrestling room, whether we have the least amount of resources or whatever it may be, we try to make the most of every opportunity that we're given. And so that way, when you're put in a situation where you have very little resources, or like we talked about, when you go overseas and you have a 12-hour bus ride and you've got chickens, flying around on there, or whatever it may be, you're in that scenario. You've trained for that. You've trained to make the best out of every scenario. And so, when we come out here and we have this amazing facility, the amazing opportunities that we do to come out here and train and compete and get better, you're going to see that we're going to take advantage of that just as much as we would take advantage of, a bus ride that's 12 hours long with chickens on it. We're going to make the most of that opportunity, and we're going to take what we have, and we're going to find a way to be better from that. And
it would really be easy to be a victim. We don't have the same resources. We don't. Why is that not part of the culture? Why is that? It's not by accident. It's not by accident. It's intentional. Right?
Well, this is sort of like what we talked about this morning at breakfast. It's finding silver linings in the situation is kind of the way that I look at it. Rick was telling me about working with some people, and basically he was like, the only positive that I could find from this situation was that maybe I can learn better patience from this. We've all been in those scenarios where it's like, I don't understand what's going on here. I don't see how this could be possible, like how someone else could possibly come to this conclusion, how we've arrived here. But at the end of the day, I'm going to find something positive in it and move forward. And for us, as part of our culture, it's if you let the small stuff get you down, then at the end of the day, when you're out there in the heat of battle, whether it's you're actually out there putting lead down range, or whether you're stepping in and putting your foot on the line on the mat, or whatever that battle may be, you're going to face bigger challenges. And so if you allow those small things to get you down and you focus on the negatives, then you're going to end up in a bad place. And it's like that with anything. Everything is blown up when you're put on that big stage. And so, I'm just thinking of Coach Lakitas. One of the things he says is, if you stress out about the matches, not that the U.S. Open isn't a big deal, or not that Armed Forces isn't a big deal, or World Team Trials isn't a big deal, but if you stress out about those too much, by the time you step on the mat at the Olympics, you're going to be frozen because everything gets blown. The bigger the stage, that grain of sand when you're in the practice room turns into a mountain when you're out there on the biggest stage. And so if you can look at that grain of sand and you see negative, then you're going to see a whole mountain of negative when you get on the big stage. If you look at that grain of sand and you see something positive, you're going to be able to find a whole lot of positivity as you get on the bigger stages.
And I think that's something Rick brought up yesterday in his class. I think everyone has their own spin-off or their different sayings with it. But Rick said it yesterday. Going through, he was down in Venezuela or Grenada, and so he got the call, and it's like it wasn't the call he wanted, but he had planned, but he had committed. Obviously, when he talked about it, committed his effort, committed financially, personally, his whole life to doing something. And then he said, "You're going to be my bench warmer," and it was just you could tell it was devastating to him. But what he said afterwards was, through that adversity became opportunity. And, in the Marine Corps, we have something, it's like, embrace the suck. It sucks. Whatever you do, it's going to suck. Just embrace it, because at the end of the day, something good will come of it. You just don't know what it is yet.
2 years ago, you were embracing the suck down and, helping us out in Montclair, getting us ready for the 2017 Worlds. And I said, hey, pay attention. You're going to be here.
One day.
You're going to be here one day.
And he kind of took it to heart. I've said that, I would say, more than 100 times since then, too. It's like, I was already there. When I make the Worlds, it's not going to be nothing. There's nothing new to it. I just got to work, embrace the suck, and one day I'll be there, too. And it's the same kind of thing, though. And through that, I think a lot of guys, in just the sport of wrestling, though, naturally our guys are just grit, is a common word, and it's something that we throw around because for us as wrestlers, we kind of take pride in the fact that we have grit no matter what. And being able to just have grit is one thing, but being able to have the grit and then have your hopes and dreams and everything else shot down or taken away or torn away from you or anything, and then being able to understand that something good, the silver lining, something good will come of this. I just can't see it yet. Like we talked about the grain of sand, or we talked about silver lining, or getting said that you're not the number one. We'll put you on the side if we really need you. We'll get another phone call. That stuff right there, being able to, something will come of this. I just need to keep the faith going.
How do you build that resiliency? Because that's what it is. I mean, you gotta have grit, you gotta have grit, but embrace it as you're embracing the suck. Does that develop the resiliency that you need to sustain this long time?
Well, I want to expand on that real quick, because this is kind of a double-edged sword, and I've seen this a lot in wrestling and in the Marine Corps. And it's in general in both groups, we take pride in perseverance through adversity, or persevering through pain and embracing that grit. And so sometimes what we tend to do is we take a bad situation and we make it a lot worse just so that we can persevere through it. And you make it more difficult for yourself, or you make it worse than it is, as opposed to seeing the positive and pressing through it. And I think that's one argument that can be made, but I think that you have enough adversity in your life in general that can be training for you, as opposed to making a bad situation worse. I think for me, it's all, getting back to your question directly, it's a matter of perspective, and so, training to basically have that positive mindset is just a matter of, how do I feel at the end of the day? If I go through the situation and I do sort of what I just described, which is, man, this is a bad scenario, I'm going to make it that much worse, because then I'm just going to persevere through it and I'm going to be better from it. Does that really make me feel better at the end of the day, or how much does that actually help me, as opposed to just focusing on the things that I actually need to struggle through? Because there's a lot of stuff that you have to struggle through, and if you're struggling through things that you don't need to, you might not be able to get through those things that you actually do need to struggle through. And so these false things that you're creating, struggles for yourself, can actually break you down to the point where you're not able to achieve your goal because the real struggle you're not able to breach because you're creating these false hardships on yourself just so that you can press through them. And I'm doing a bad job of capturing it in a word picture situation that I've seen 100 times.
I'm visualizing exactly what you're saying without even giving an example.
Yeah.
And Dr. Baldwin was out here in April. We talked about the adversity emotion and not just suffering through adversity. It's like, how do we harness and get the most out of this? As we're embracing the suck, like, how are we embracing it? Are we like going to get something? We're going to grow. We're going to develop that resiliency, and that sounds like what we are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I can kind of see if I can say what I think you're saying, is that like when you're facing those experiences of adversity, not just thinking. The first step is like, I'm going to persevere through this. It's not going to get me down, but like that can't be the last step in the thought process. It's got to be next steps that follow it, which is like, not only am I going to persevere, but here's the good things. Here's the good reasons that I still have. Here's a couple of chambers I still have in my round, or a couple of rounds I still have in my chamber. Right? Like, we're not down to the main end yet. And so like, there's still things I can take offense on, and I can move forward. There's still some silver linings that we can do, and not just that, it'll work out if I just keep trying hard, but like actually taking the next thought step of creating a map forward. Like, not only can it work out if I keep pushing through and keep showing up and make the team next year or whatever, but like, here's my map of how to start thinking, what do I need to do to make that happen, rather than sort of a passive role of so it's like a layer of steps. So the first thing you need to do, right, is don't panic, don't give up, realize, hey, I'm gonna persevere to do this. But embrace the suck. But then it's like, here's the things that don't suck, or here's the ways I'm going to dig out of this hole, and here's the good things that I can look forward to if I do this, and this step. Then here's the roadmap. So it's like, it's less of that despairing of like, I'm just gonna create a prison in my mind that I'm in, and I'm just gonna make myself a martyr of suffering through it. And instead saying, here's the path out of the hole, and here's how we can do it. Maybe greases the wheels a little bit rather than getting them kind of rusted up like it sounds like you were.
But we also got to elevate through that to a higher level. So, I mean, we gotta get through this, whatever this is we're embracing, and how do we harness that to get to a higher level? And every time we do that, are we developing our resiliency through this? Are we developing that grit that we need?
I mean, I think it's all a process, though. Like, I think you hit it a couple times yesterday because I heard you here saying it. Because every time I hear it, it's hard for me to actually accept it myself, and now I preach about it. But like accepting the failure sometimes, because like we talked about getting the youth in, and they're not men, and they're not everything else. But with that comes the fact that they haven't built up those walls of being able to understand that if something doesn't go my way, I need to bust through it. At such a young age, that's probably going to be another factor as a team for us that we're going to have to create for them to actually understand is, if they have such good success at such a young age and everything else, and then they come up and they juniors or cadets and schoolboys and everything else, and then they do really good on the senior level or something like that, and then they get stuck, they get stopped, and are they going to be able to accept that and move forward? Because just like we talk about, it's like a 12-step program or anything else, or when it comes to failures, like you have to accept your fault. You have to say, I'm sorry. You have to say, all right, I failed. What am I going to do to get through it? But if we don't accept it, then we won't ever be able to actually come back from it. I think a lot of times you see that, just in wrestling or in general, is, you're so successful, but you hit that one time, something happens, or whether the guy beats you or something doesn't go your way, and you're like, I don't know how to. They don't know how to come back from it because they've never experienced it. And I think it's like whether we talk about an onion or building a resiliency, it's like every little hurdle that you get through, whether it's embracing the suck or whether it's failure or whether it's anything else, every little hurdle that you take and you learn from it as a life lesson will build up that wall.
That layer of armor.
Yes.
Yeah,
like you can take this away, or you can take a mat away, or you can take my shoes away, or my clothes, and then you can say, you still need to go win a world title. But for some people, they'll be like, I don't know how to do that. we don't have AC.
I don't have a so
Like,
I don't have to.
you're telling me I don't have a sauna? Like,
Humans know how to do
yeah,
that.
like, but and you see though, and they're respected, and they're great. They're like, I don't have, these beds are as thin as this table. I don't have AC. I don't have. And sorry, I don't have anything. And you're like, those guys are tough. I don't want to mess with them, and because they've been through it, they've embraced the suck, and they've come out of it on the other side stronger, bigger, better, and they have the mental fortitude that they can't be stopped. And they build it up to where when you get to our stage now, that if I was to like lose a match at the Worlds, like how can I come back from that and then make sure that I win the Olympic trials and then I can win the Olympics at any way, on any day, no matter what. And it's building that up to where if you don't accept that failure now at this level, you won't be able to accept it at that level.
Yeah, I mean, so I couldn't agree more with you. And I talk a lot with students in like academic settings. It's very similar ideas and concepts, and I call it emotional calluses, right? So it's kind of like, how can you be resilient if you don't know how to be resilient? If the first time you get hurt is the first time you get hurt, you don't know what the tool set is to even get back from that. So when you have a tough loss, you have something that's like, I think that a lot of times the last generation or two we've been raised where, there's been a lot of padding. There's been a lot of trophies for everyone. There's been a lot of protection against these emotional sort of micro insults when it hurts when we lose. And we've been trying to protect people from that hurt sometimes. But what that's preventing is, and I told a student this just the day before I came out here, was like, if, when a 9-year-old falls and scrapes his knee, or a 10-year-old girl falls and scrapes her elbow, that builds a callus there. That builds, the skin gets a little tougher, and when they're a grown-up and they stub their toe, they're okay. Because the first time you stub your toe, it sucks. It hurts. Like, I don't know. That's pretty bad touchdowns.
Yeah.
And if you've had a lifetime of those little things, you're going to have those physical calluses that help us, right? It's just
Both up the arm.
but that same is true psychologically for the emotional side. Like, we have kids who've never failed, like really failed, because we've never oftentimes given them a chance to really fail and encouraged that it's okay, and they're not, it's, hey, you lost a match, or hey, whatever. A lot of times, and I think this is what wrestling does so good, is it's unique in sports, and that we still give kids a chance to lose. Every time they step on the mat, they have a chance to lose and suffer that emotional era, so that they can build those calluses. And now we have people 24, 25, 29 years old. I see students or people in society, and man, they get a bad grade, and they're like, well, I've never gotten a bad grade before. First time for everything. But they don't know how to handle that rejection or that loss. And it seems like the same sort of parallel to what you were talking about when you have these other setbacks. Having that emotional resilience, that's what the grit
Did
is.
not challenge themselves enough. I mean, taking your class is definitely a step up from anything they've ever done before, because you're going to challenge them. You're going to challenge them. When you don't put yourself in challenging enough environments, you enter the Pee Wee League, and you just kind of find your way, and you constantly have success. I'm gonna share what I did to you, Rick, yesterday. So I took a group of people like whitewater rafting. My abilities and my perceptions are skewed, because I'm like, oh, this is an easy run, and
Not to this guy now.
well, no, I mean, not to anyway. The first time I ever put him in a boat, I was like, there's a race going down the gorge. It's a class 4 run, and it's going to be competitive, and we're going to go down the, and he drops into this hole, and I'm like, get the hell up, bow, bow, and he jumps up and he responds. He's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, yeah, we're cool now. Like, let's just get down the rest of it. And I saw his ability to be like, okay, I failed right there. I'm not going to make that same mistake again. Maybe we'll make another one down the road. So when I go with my wife and some beginners, I'm like, okay, this is like not just easy. This is like not even challenging at all for anybody in my boat. So what do? I go, I'm going to put Rick in my hard shell kayak that he's never paddled before, and I'm going to optimally challenge him. I wouldn't have done this to him on the gorge, but on the South Platte, at lower levels and stuff, there was 2 class 3s that he had to navigate through.
And they lock you in with this skirt thing around you, you can't get out. And
You're locked in a boat and you're upside down. And so yeah, share what you just took away from that yesterday. You almost died. You didn't die. You're grateful. Like these are like things that people don't put themselves in these situations because fear just paralyzes guys. Fear paralyzes guys, and it's not just fear of. It's fear of things that aren't real. It's fear of I'm gonna lose my in front of my friends and family, and I'm gonna look like an idiot. Who cares about that stuff?
Yeah.
But this was life and death.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to looking like an idiot in front of my friends
So
and
tell
family.
us,
So
you know, I
yeah.
don't want to throw you under the bus, but you did take a couple swims yesterday.
you threw me under the rocks, right? But no, it was really cool, and it was fun. I got to learn some new stuff, and we just went through, and they gave me a little crash course of how to sort of try to do a couple things in kayak, and I got to learn and went down the thing, and it was challenging, and these things happen so fast. You know, you think you have everything under control, and then I was just upside down underwater, and in this hole surrounded by these rocks, and it was a little scary because you're upside down, you're in these rocks, and the first thing I thought was like, I was really happy that he gave me a helmet.
I'm grateful I got a helmet
Yeah, like.
and a PFD.
Well, yeah. So it was interesting. So you talk about fear and panic and all those things. Like I think those are natural sentiments. I didn't really panic though at first. I didn't have that fear. I had concern, but that's different, right? I mean, like I was concerned. I'm like, okay, I'm in a situation here. Let's figure out what we got to do. And of course, anything that they trained me on the crash course right before we jumped in the water is completely gone. Because you're just in. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, but I had also done a lot of training. I was a rescue diver, research diver, even instrument training flying airplanes. You train to fly in blacked out conditions, and you can only trust your instruments. And so you learn not to trust your own kinesthetic awareness because we can be wrong. We have vestibular problems, and so you can learn to just tamp down your physiology and your cognitive responses, and just don't panic. Figure something out, but know that what you're feeling might not be true. So don't pay attention to that panic. Don't pay attention to that fear. So I'm sitting there underwater and I can't get out. And I thought, okay, maybe if I just ride this out a little bit, I'll roll out. And try that a little bit. That didn't work. And I can kind of see the surface. And I can't get up there. The way that the waves and the waters were coming down. It's kind of a good analogy for life sometimes, right? It's not just the current pushing you this way. You got cross currents. You got stuff actually pushing you down. Even though you've got a life jacket that's designed to float you up. You can see this up top, but it's literally got force for keeping you down. And I started to flirt with the idea that maybe if these stay goes on a little longer, maybe it could be a good idea to panic. But
I don't know if panic's ever a good idea, but it's innate.
yeah, so I'm flirting with the idea, but I felt pretty comfortable because I had that training where you're used to being, and I was just like, okay, I'm just holding my breath and work our way through it, and I thought for a moment, like, okay, so maybe I'll die, and okay, and I just kind of figured a way out and squeezed out, and I don't know how that happened, but it did, so I'm pretty grateful, and then came up to the surface, and we were talking last night over some beers, so people were asking, like, what's the best highlights and low points of the day, and I said, the highlight is, I came up for air, I was so happy, I was like, I'm not dead, like, this is great. Yeah, like this is so, and because even when I was out, I had the life jacket on, I still couldn't get up. I felt like you're being kept under a wave when you're surfing and it keeps you down.
What we're not explaining though to people that have never hardshell kayak is what's the first thing you want to get out of the water when you're upside down?
That's probably good, yeah. So that's the last thing that comes out.
It's the last thing that comes out. It's so counterintuitive. It's like, okay, I want to keep my head in the water as long as possible so my hips can get me up on top. And it's like, you want to breathe. You want to, like, it's just instinct. It's human nature. We want to survive, but you've got to be calm, be patient. And it's the same thing when we're in the mat. It's like, the calm, patient, persistence, being disciplined in the steps. What's next? What's next? What's next? And like we were talking about, what's next isn't Kazakhstan. What's next is tomorrow.
Today,
training
tomorrow.
cycle. Like what's next is I need to get through tomorrow. I can't be thinking about winning in Kazakhstan because my opponents want to win just as bad as I do. I got to think about what I got to do at this moment, right now. What I got to do next, and those things are changing, they're dynamic, because what I think I might have to do next could change because of that cross current. And the other current pushing me down, and I gotta adjust to those.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing that, like, you were saying is that, like, so I wasn't thinking about getting my head up first. Because I did not feel comfortable. I was definitely like, okay, this is a situation. But I also felt comfortable being uncomfortable to where I didn't panic because, like I said, I actually had a lot of training. I had a lot of failure. I'd done years of training underwater, blacked out masks, just doing all that to where when those things, like you said, you want your head to come up last. I wasn't worried about it. Or you want your head to be first is the natural. So I wasn't thinking about that. I said, okay, I'm good here. Don't need to breathe. We can just sort this out. But that comes from the failure. Those are those emotional calluses. Those are those knee scraps.
Well,
Where
we
like,
have all kinds of contingencies upon contingencies, right?
Yeah.
Share with
Let's
us
just
a
back
little
up,
bit of
that's
that.
back. Well, right before that though, like what you were saying, I think it's hard, and I know Danny's probably thinking of it, so I'm just going to beat him to the punch. Is like you talked about, you hadn't been in that particular situation, in that particular kayak, in that particular current, but you had been in those situations before where I could die, or this could happen, or something's going to go wrong. How am I going to take a step back? All right, accept where I'm at, and then move forward with a plan. And the thing with us is, as we're talking about this, and what I'm starting to realize is, like, you gave us this class, and in the middle of that class, in the middle of what we're talking about now, is this class shouldn't be for us. Like, it shouldn't actually be for us. I shouldn't be taking so much away that I'm taking right now, other than maybe a refresher course, because we should take this as it's our duty and our responsibility as leaders, and being the front runners in everything that we do, and being the top of the food chain, and passing this down. If we can make it more fun, or make it more kid friendly, this should be something that our youth sees, and it's our job and our responsibility to pass this down. Because just like Rick said, he had been in those situations of failure before, where I could die. Just like in the Marines, battle and everything, it's like, all right, I could die right now. Am I going to freeze? Or am I going to engage? Am I going to move forward? Am I going to keep one step after another step after another step? Just like Rick was saying, he's like, I could freeze right now and I could die, or I could figure out, all right, how do I get to the point of getting my head out of this water? And it's a process, and it's the same thing with with our youth and with the kids, and just the same thing with wrestling. Is I can't just win. It's the process of embracing everything that comes along with that, which is failure. It is adversity and everything else. But just like in the Marine Corps, it's the exact same thing. But I think with wrestling, it's a huge correlation, and with the fact that we need to callous ourselves. We need to, as coaches and leaders and athletes, callous the youth, and have the coaches at every level of our sport teaching them, and teaching any person that walks in the room that this is a process, and this is the process it's going to take, and it's not going to be an overnight success.
Everybody wants instant gratification, and it makes this so hard to do. I think a lot of us at this table right now kind of get that because of where we're at in our life and the experiences we've had. But how do we share that experience with a young guy that doesn't want it? I mean, nobody wants the struggle, nobody wants the side. We want everything to be smooth, but that's not what builds the resiliency and the calluses and stuff. So how do we get that lesson into the hands of people where this is good, you failed, great, celebrate failure.
I think it has to start. I think the earlier it starts, the better.
Yeah.
I think John. He's at the point now where he's saying, "How do I recover from losing a match at the World Championships?" When you were a kid, if you had thought about, how would I recover from losing a match at the World Championships, you would have felt suffocated by that fear of the things you can't control, and that would have been one of them. But when you go to your first tournament, as a youngster, and you lose a match, you learn how to deal with a loss at a tournament that nobody cares about in the off season, and then you get into the regular season and you learn how to deal with the adversity of losing a match in a duel, and then you learn how to deal with the adversity of losing a match at the conference or the region or the state tournament. You learn how to deal with that adversity over time, and the earlier you can start doing that, the easier it is to build that up, because you're right, everyone does want instant gratification. Everyone wants that result. They want it right now. And, I'm the same. I want it too. Like, I want to be on the world team right now. but I'm not. And so your last question was about building contingencies and plans and stuff like that. You have to plan for all these different things, and it's going back to the whole fear thing. It's like you fear the unknown as opposed to just saying, or not so much the unknown as much as like, okay, these things are out of my control, and that's scary. But I just have to accept that these things are out of my control, and I put that over here, and then I focus on, okay, this is in my control, and this is how I can overcome that fear, and this is how I can overcome that adversity. And while I might not get the result right away, I have all these contingencies and these tools. You have all this training, right? And you're saying like, okay, we had the crash course right before we started. That's, might have helped you this much, but all the other training you did also helped you stay calm. Let go of the things that you can't control. Don't trust your body and what it's telling you. All these other trainings that you've had that have prepared you for that. I think that's just as important. I think failing as early as possible, as backwards as that sounds, is important for building those calluses that you guys are referring to.
No, in the context of what we're talking about, it seems like the logical step. Don't fail right now, because you're gonna fail. Like, get it out of the way, do it as often and frequently and as early as possible. Start failing.
Yeah, that's what Rick said though.
It was exactly what you had to do.
Letting them fail, and it's as us. We're like, I'm a dad. I've got 2 boys. Do I want my kids to lose? No, I don't want them to lose. Do I know that they're going to need to lose to have that fire deep down in their belly like I do? Yes, but it's not about how fast they get there. Like you said in the thing, and it's a saying that you have. You want to go fast? Go by yourself. Whether it's, and that's whether you're going on a run, whether you're going to succeed, whether it's wrestling, whether it's life. You want to go fast, real quick? Go by yourself. You want to go far? Go together.
Because your teammates can help you get through those and lift you up.
And it's going to take time. With that time, it's going to come those mountains. It's going to come, those roads that they're going to twist and turn. And there's going to be roadblocks and everything else is going to be in the way. And it's not going to be. They're going to have to realize that one injury isn't going to, or one bad night's sleep isn't going to lose you a world team spot or lose you a match. It's the bad habits that we create from years past that's going to lose them that. And I mean, and like we said, that's on us. We have to, we have to accept the fact that it's our responsibility to keep pushing that down. And whether they don't see it the first time or the second time or the 20th time, they're going to see it and they're going to hear enough to understand that, all right, this is what I'm going to have to do to succeed, and it's going to be a long road. And if I accept it, I will be a champion.
I think letting him know,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, let him know that that's okay, too, right?
Yeah.
And so I was even surprised, even after yesterday's talk, Joe Rao and Pat Smith, they came up and they're like, oh, this is really cool. Joe's like, I was D3 also, and Pat's like, I was a backup in Minnesota. And to me, even then, I was shocked because I'm like, man, I'm here with the elite, the best of them. And my brain took a second to register that. I'm like, wow, okay, that's right. Like, this is letting younger kids in this trajectory. To your question, how do we do that and get that message across? Letting them see that, like, our best go through those processes, and that's you might have some guys who might have been perfect the whole trajectory, but that's so rare that happens. Letting them know that this is normal, this happens, and then letting them know to look at those things as not signs of failure, but it's actually when you come across those forks in the road of those just awful days, awful losses, awful experiences, awful emotions. Those are actually can be road signs that you're actually on the right road. So we talk about this in other podcast episodes where
Good, I failed again.
yeah, like it's signs of like that you're actually on the right track and you're being prepared to follow the footsteps of people who've also stepped in those same mud puddles. And you got to get to where you need to at the end of that trail, your shoes got to get more money. Like that when you're feeling those bad things, the kids can know like, hey, this does suck, and maybe I should embrace the suck. That's good, but I'm on the right track because the natural feeling when you're underwater is to say I'm in a bad spot. But maybe when I'm having this bad experience and you feel like I'm on the wrong track because I feel bad, maybe that's a sign I'm on the right track because everybody else who got to the same destination had to feel this same badness. And it's certainly not an excuse to go give people bad experiences by any means. But like, it just, to me, what you guys are saying is really resonating because like I talk to kids who have popular thing a lot of people talk about is this thing called imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. Yeah, a lot of kids, they feel like they graduated, they go get a job, they go to school, and they feel like they're the imposter in the group, and everyone else is really good, and somehow I snuck in here. And I don't really belong, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, I don't think that's just generational.
no, I know.
Everybody said,
I think that's what I'm doing.
No,
Wait,
but
wait a minute, I'm on the world team. Wait, I'm coaching
It takes a
these
second.
elite
yeah.
suburbs.
So that's the exact thing. Is people have now come up. There's a lot of writings and blog posts and articles about this, getting people to realize that you might feel that way, but if everyone else in the room also feels that way, then you're not actually the imposter. You're right where you need to be. In fact, you're in a spot where you might have gotten there from some prior success, but now you realize that the people around you might have more success than you think you have, and this is actually a chance to grow. You know, you're no longer on JV, now you're in varsity. This is a chance to get better. This is a chance to get better, but it's not just you. It's so getting kids to know that when I feel these feelings of failure, this fear, or whatever it is that they're battling, that they're not alone. It's actually a benchmark on the right path. That other people feel this. We've all felt this at times. It's a good sign of a little step that we can climb and overcome. But this goes back to having the lack of calluses. So a lot of times it's a very prominent feeling, especially in like modern society for a lot of the students I teach and stuff like that, and people I talk to, because they haven't had a lot of failures. And what that means is you have great inflation, you have trophies for everyone. How do you know that you're really that good? Because you know they've always let you bowl with Wonderlands. And so, so when they announce you then and introduce you, and you're the newest member of our world team, come on in, and they might feel that way. They're like, well, yeah, I mean, I won the bowling tournament, but they know they have Wonderlands in there. They know. And so they don't feel that it's necessarily their success is necessarily authentic and real.
I don't think we're helping the next generation by giving them Wonderlands and no scores and a trophy for participation. We're not at all helping our generation.
They're being deprived of the callous opportunity, those normal emotional resiliences, and so that they do then build that fear of failure now becomes stronger, because now whether it's in a match, I can't lose, because nobody wants to lose, but even in practice, it's like I need to get this right, and I can't take chances. It locks us up. We see that this is me in wrestling, so I didn't do very good. I was never very rarely did I have the security and lack of insecurities to open up and just wrestle with joy and take chances, take offense, be liberal in my wrestling, and not worry about giving up a point, not worry about losing. And I think practice room is the spot where we do that, right? Where like a lot of times, and I think Matt, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, of like letting guys know. So the analogy from talk yesterday was like, we're in simulation, and if we're gonna fail, this is the spot to fail. Let's celebrate those failures in a simulation, because we should be the lab rats that fail and get the crap kicked out of us, so that when we send up to the rock stars in space, have a perfectly tested system that already had the weak links taken out. So celebrating those failures, going to practice and saying, let's look at all these failures of my shots, of my whatever moves we're doing as celebrated successes, and letting people know that it's okay. They're not gonna, that loosens up that grip of fear a little bit on them, right? Allows us to be more offensive, allows us to be more free, and to take those chances, and to not worry about the losses, and heck, practice that stuff over and over. It's going to translate to a match.
Absolutely right. I couldn't, and all I'm visualizing as you're talking is the inverted triangle. It's like we talked about it yesterday in the slide. I put that slide on this episode of why it's important to focus on me last, and focus on the program, on the team, and the mission. And really making yourself small, because if you allow your ego to go, you're at the top. You're upside down.
Well, I think it's an immature champion who thinks that they're on the top of that pyramid, because we feel like we're out there, we got our hand raised, or we're the ones suffering bruises from the match, and it feels that way. But I think like the more mature the champion becomes, as the person grows, on or off the mat, they realize it's not just them at the top of that pyramid. We like to think that we're on the bleeding edge of that sphere. But I think the real professionals, the real pros, you realize that the teams, the coaches, the administrators, the parents, the secretaries, everybody working together. That's pushing that. They push the spear. All you do is pierce at the tip of the. But somebody's throwing that spear, and if you're the tip of the spear, you can't be the one throwing it. Somebody else is doing a ton of inertia as a team.
All that effort.
And what I've heard.
Great analogy.
What I've heard from you guys too is like, that's a really good thing of like helping the others. And I think that like what I talked about yesterday of the role of a backup and the role of a workout partner. And I remember, just as an aside, I remember last year, Matt talking to me, getting ready for the Worlds, just on the phone, and he was raving about the work that you were doing and contributing to helping the guys. He's just raving about the role that you were playing in helping guys get ready. And so, to think that, like, I've talked about that a lot, but, those, if you think of those skills, isn't that not just what the backup ought to be doing? Isn't that the same principles? Isn't that what the main leader at the front should be doing too?
In the right environment too, at least the way it feels for me is, when John wins, I feel that win with him.
Yeah.
When he loses, I feel the loss with him. And so we talked about it at the World Team Trials Challenge tournament, and it's like we had a Marine win, and then we had a Marine win, and then we had a Marine win, and then I went out there and lost in the finals. It's like all those guys, I felt all the joy. We feel the highest of the highs, on the team, but we also feel the lows of the lows. And that spans for every individual that's a member of the team, and Coach Lakitis is the same. I mean, he might as well be stepping out there on the mat. He's so invested, and that's just one direct extension. That's the direct reach. That's not even branching out into everyone who's second and third and fourth echelon. But in that right environment, it's not just understanding that those people are, the ones throwing the spear. It's also understanding that they're the ones who are there, and they feel you when you're at your lowest, and they feel you when you're at your highest. And they share in that experience because they are a part of the process. And once you understand that you're not just stepping out there, for yourself. You're out there with everyone, and you can take it two ways. You can either be afraid because you feel obligated, or you can embrace it and say, thank goodness I have all these people who are here and have supported me and have guided me here, and we're ready to roll and do this together. Win or lose, I'm out here putting my foot on the line, and we're going to rock and roll. And I think that's like a freeing feeling is, when you have that kind of organization and you have that kind of support, and you understand that you have that kind of support, it really it puts a different dynamic for when you go out there and you compete.
To be open-minded about it.
Yeah.
When you think open-minded and narrow-minded and everything else like that, right? Once you get to that point where I want Dan to win as bad as I want. I want, if it's Terrence in my own way, I want him to win no matter where it is, whether it's ahead of me, whether it's next to me, whether it's behind me, whatever it is, I want him to win because we can't do it alone. And I need him to win. And when he wins, I'm going to win. And then we're going to make each other better. And it's just a building block. And it's like compound interest.
And that goes into the practice room.
The guys that don't feel that way don't. I mean, what's the character of fault in there? The guys that if it's like a zero-sum game, guys. The guys that, well, if he wins, I lose.
And
I think it's a matter of having the athletes embrace the fact that in order for us to elevate overall, if I don't get better, Tracy's not going to get better. If Sheridan doesn't get better, I'm not going to get better. It's we go out there and we compete against each other, but at the end of the day, wrestling as a whole, it's like we go overseas and we train with overseas partners, and we come here and we do national team camps, and you do it to train with the best guys you can train with. But if the best guys you can train with aren't getting better, and you've already exhausted your training with them, well, then how are you getting any better? It has to continually elevate. We have to elevate each other in order to do that collectively as a group. In order to have better success, better results, in order to have better wrestling, it's like everyone in the room has to get better, or else nobody gets better.
Or you go find guys that are better and you surround yourself with those guys.
Yeah.
But it makes me think back to when I first started wrestling. I was in high school, and I went to a tournament and I lost 8 matches in one weekend. I entered both styles, cadet, freestyle, and I entered cadet junior age group. So somehow I was capable of getting 8 matches in one weekend. And it was my first freestyle Greco tournament. You know, all I've been exposed to was the high school style wrestling. And, you know, I just paid attention to who was sitting on those podiums. And I was like, okay, look at those uniforms. Those guys must train together somewhere. I gotta go find where they're training. I gotta join that training environment. But then there's the rivalries of, well, that club's against this club, and it's like, and I got caught up in that as a freshman in high school, a sophomore in high school. It was like, well, my club's the best, and it was like, well, no, there's a lot of good guys, and you start logically thinking, okay, now I need to go to this club, and I'm not abandoning these guys. I'm just getting other training opportunities. I'm getting, so it's like, why are you over here? Like, why are you training at our club? I was like, got a bunch of really talented guys. I want to get my ass kicked by. And
I think what Dan was saying earlier too was really, really good about letting people know that they have that team around them, that, you know, everybody wants you to win and they're all with you together. And like you were asking about like how do we communicate some of these things to like younger generations, so people know that, right? Because you guys have such a good team bond with that attitude, particularly with that military culture. Like we're all in this together, and we're all pushing that guy forward to make sure that we can get to the top of the mountain. I think I think when we can communicate that to the kids, and also let them know, I think another layer to that is the threat that there can be a paralysis of that. I know at times that's what paralyzed me, is like, now I have to do good because all these people are depending on me. They're all watching me, or, you know, they all need me, or you know, I think when you have, you know, emotionally inexperienced kids who haven't gone through some growth processes, you know, as we all have to go through at times, and letting them know not only is we're all behind you, but like let them know. And like, this has come to me now as like a fan and like watching my younger siblings compete and all that. It's like that we want to see you on offense. We want to see you take chances. We want to see you lose by taking chances. We'd rather see you go down on strike swinging rather than looking at the baseball analogy, right? And I think that this can help people to know that even if they're going to lose, that we're with them, but that we want to see them trying. And, you know, that can be, I think, maybe reassuring against the paralysis of, now I have to wrestle conservatively and very cautiously because I can't lose, because everybody's behind me and they want me to win. No, we're behind you if you lose too. What makes us really excited because we care about you and we love you, and we care so much to just see you succeed. Not for us, but for you. We want you to succeed, for you to be that single person with your only hand raised, because
you're still gonna hold up the flag for the whole country.
Well, yeah, but we care about you, right? That like you're not carrying the country on your shoulders either. We care about you. That's why we want you to win. We want to see you take chances. We want to see you go out there, open up, and be lose.
Just yesterday, what was the? We haven't even talked about this. But what was the one piece of advice that kept ringing in your head when you said you got that little crash course, or you got another piece of advice on the water? What was the thing that kept you moving forward down the river, right side up?
Right side up.
Right side up. What was the one thing? What was the one piece of advice?
I think he said to keep your weight forward and keep out.
Lean forward and paddle hard.
Yeah.
Attack.
Yeah.
Lean forward and attack this. Don't sit in the back of your boat and get bounced by the waves that are coming at you. Get your way forward, lean forward, and attack this situation.
It's an interesting analogy too, because the temptation at the time was I was a little bit fatigued, both cognitively and physically. I was starting to feel that I needed to pay more and more attention, which meant I was dropping down a little bit more. You know, I had to call more resources up. And the temptation is to feel that, well, I need to get from here to here. And the current is going from here to here. Maybe I don't need to do anything. I'll just ride this current out and I'll relax. Like, I can, maybe if I don't do it, the waves are going to push me here. Like,
And that's the second time you were swimming.
yeah, it was legitimately like that, because you give into that little micro temptation because that I forgot that element of like offense, lean forward,
How hard.
keep doing stuff, and I forgot that because there's that temptation. If I don't do anything, I can just ride this out. Time will stall out on the
Sometimes we see
clock.
guys have
We'll
a
get a
lead,
push out.
and they're going to collar tie and leave their hips back and do it. I'm going to hold this lead because it's scary. You know, I could win right now, and if I don't, but if you just kept attacking and stayed on offense, he can't get any offense going.
Yeah, which was not broken.
Well, guys, this has been great. I really appreciate your time coming in and sharing with us and sharing for our podcast.
You guys are a real inspiration.
Absolutely, appreciate it. Both yesterday and today, great insight.
As wrestlers and service members, I mean, just look up to everything you guys do. It's really impressive.
For sure.
Thank you.